She grew up believing that silence was safer than speaking. After her mother passed away, the house no longer felt like a home. Her father tried to be kind, but grief made him quiet, and work kept him away for long hours. When he remarried, everyone said it was good for the family. They said a woman was needed to keep the house together. At first, it seemed true. The new wife smiled often and spoke softly when others were around. Neighbors praised her manners. Relatives said the girl was lucky, but behind closed doors, things were different. The girl learned this quickly. Every morning, she woke before sunrise. The house was still dark when she stepped out of bed, careful not to make noise. Her stepmother liked everything done early. Floors had to be cleaned before breakfast. Dishes from the night before were never allowed to sit. Clothes had to be washed by hand, even when her fingers turned red in the cold water. If something was missed, even something small, the stepmother's voice would cut through the air like a sharp knife. The girl never answered back. She kept her eyes low and said sorry, even when she didn't understand what she had done wrong. Over time, sorry became the word she said the most. Her father noticed little things, but not enough. When he was home, the stepmother acted gentle. She spoke kindly to the girl and even offered her food with a smile. If the girl looked tired or quiet, the stepmother would say she was just shy or lazy. The father, already exhausted from work, believed her. He wanted peace in the house more than truth. The girl learned another lesson then. Some pain is invisible, especially when no one wants to see it. Money was always a problem. The stepmother reminded her of this every day. She would say the girl was a burden, that feeding her cost too much, that clothes on her back were a waste. Old dresses were given to her, faded and worn. Shoes that no longer fit anyone else became hers. When something tore or broke, she was blamed for being careless. Yet the stepmother never forgot to dress well herself. She wore clean clothes, styled her hair, and walked with pride outside the house. To the world, she was a respectful woman doing her best. Inside the house, she ruled with cold control. School had once been a place of comfort for the girl. But as money became tighter, the stepmother began to complain about school fees. She said education was useless for someone like her. After many arguments behind closed doors, the decision was made. The girl would stop studying and start working. She did not cry when she left school. She packed her few books quietly and placed them in a corner of the room she shared with boxes and unused furniture. That night, she stared at the ceiling for hours, wondering when her life had taken such a sharp turn. She was still young, but she felt much older than her age. Finding work was not easy. Most places wanted experience, or they wanted people who looked confident and well-dressed. The girl had neither. Finally, she found a small job in the city. It was simple work, nothing special, but it paid just enough. She took buses early in the morning and returned home late, always tired. Her stepmother did not care about her exhaustion. In fact, she used it. More work was added at home. If the girl ever slowed down, she was reminded that she ate food under that roof and should be grateful. Still, the city became her quiet escape. On the bus rides, she watched people through the window. Everyone seemed to be going somewhere important. Some laughed into their phones. Some looked angry. Some looked hopeful. She imagined what their lives were like. For a few minutes each day, she felt part of something bigger. At work, she kept to herself. She spoke politely and did what was asked without complaint. Many people did not even notice her. She blended into the background like she had learned to do at home. One evening, near the end of a long shift, something unexpected happened. A man came in, asking simple questions. He did not look rich or important. His clothes were plain, his voice calm. What made him different was how he listened. When she answered him, he looked at her, not past her. Their conversation was short. Just a few words about work, about timing, about small things. But when he thanked her, it sounded real. Not rushed, not forced. She felt something strange then. Not happiness exactly, but a warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. She forgot about him by the time she reached home. Life there did not allow room for small moments. That night, the stepmother complained about dinner and said the food was tasteless. The girl apologized and cleaned the kitchen again. Later, Lying on her thin mattress, she thought briefly of the man's calm eyes. Then she pushed the thought away. Dreams, she had learned, were dangerous. Days passed, each one much like the last. Wake early, work hard, stay quiet. But sometimes, in the middle of her busy routine, she caught herself thinking about the way that man had spoken to her. With respect, as if she mattered. She told herself it meant nothing. People passed through her life all the time. They never stayed. At home, the stepmother's behavior slowly changed. She began watching the girl more closely. She noticed when the girl returned with a tired smile instead of a dull face. She noticed when the girl seemed lost in thought. These small changes made the stepmother uneasy. Control depended on breaking spirits. Something about the girl no longer felt completely broken. One night, during dinner, the stepmother made a sharp comment about the girl's job. She asked who she talked to all day. She laughed and said people like the girl should remember their place. The father stayed silent, focused on his plate. The girl felt a familiar tightness in her chest. She lowered her head and continued eating quietly. Inside, however, something shifted. For the first time, she wondered what life would be like if she were treated kindly every day. Not just in rare moments. She did not know it yet. But her life was already moving, slowly and quietly, toward change. The stepmother believed she had full control. She believed the girl would remain small, afraid, dependent forever. What she did not know was that even the smallest kindness could plant a seed. And that seed, once planted, could grow in ways no one expected. That was how the first part of the girl's story unfolded. Not with loud drama or sudden miracles, but with silent pain, quiet strength. In a single moment of human respect that refused to fade, life did not change suddenly after that small moment of kindness. The girl still woke up early. She still worked until her body ached. The stepmother was still the same. But something inside the girl had shifted quietly, like a door opening, just a little. She began noticing things she had ignored before. The sound of birds in the early morning, the cool air on her face during bus rides, even her own reflection in shop windows, tired but still standing. She did not smile much, but she no longer felt completely empty. At work, the days passed quickly. She focused on her tasks, careful not to make mistakes. One afternoon, she saw the same man again. He walked in calmly, just as before. He did not rush. When their eyes met, he nodded slightly, as if he remembered her. That small gesture stayed with her all day. This time he asked her how her day was going. The question caught her off guard. No one had asked her that in a long time. She answered honestly but simply. She did not want to share too much. He listened, just like before. When he left, he thanked her again. From that day on, he appeared from time to time. Sometimes days passed without seeing him. Sometimes he came twice in 1 week. Their conversations were never long. Just a few sentences. But each time, he treated her with respect. He never talked down to her. He never rushed her. She did not know anything about his life. He never mentioned work, money, or where he came from. He asked her about simple things instead. How long she had been working. Whether she liked the city. What she did on her days off. She answered carefully. Talking about herself felt strange. She was used to being ignored, not asked. Slowly, she found herself looking forward to those brief moments. She did not tell anyone. She did not even fully admit it to herself. But something warm grew inside her chest every time she saw him at home. Things were getting harder. The stepmother noticed changes she did not like. The girl seemed quieter, but not in the broken way she was used to. There was a calmness in her movements now. She completed her work without fear. This made the stepmother uneasy. She began questioning the girl more often. Where did she go after work? Who did she talk to? Why did she come home with a thoughtful look on her face? The girl answered respectfully, keeping her voice low. She spoke only the truth, but never more than necessary. This only increased the stepmother's suspicion. One evening, the stepmother accused her of thinking too highly of herself. She said the city was filling her head with nonsense. She reminded her again of her place. The girl stood quietly and listened. She did not argue. But inside, the words no longer cut as deep as before. She had started to realize something important. Kindness was not a weakness. Respect was not something she had imagined. She had felt it, and it was real. Her father remained distant. He noticed tension in the house, but avoided it. Silence had become his way of surviving grief. The girl understood this, but it still hurt. At work, the man once asked her why she always looked tired. She hesitated before answering. Then she said she had responsibilities at home. He nodded, as if he understood more than she had said. He did not push for details. That night, for the first time, she allowed herself to think of him before sleeping. She wondered what his life was like. Whether someone waited for him at home? Whether he was happy? These thoughts scared her. She pushed them away, telling herself not to dream. But dreams have a way of returning. The stepmother's behavior became sharper. She criticized the girl more openly now, even when others were around. She made comments about how useless poor people were. She laughed when the girl stayed silent. Relatives sometimes watched uncomfortably, but said nothing. The girl endured it all. She had done so her whole life. But now, instead of breaking her, it was strengthening her. One day, something small but important happened. At work, a problem came up, and the girl handled it calmly. The man happened to be there. He watched quietly as she solved the issue with patience and care. Later, he told her she had done well. Those words stayed with her longer than any insult ever had. From that moment, her feelings became harder to ignore. She realized she cared about him deeply. Not because of anything he owned or promised, but because of how he treated her. Because with him, she felt human. She knew loving him made no sense. She was poor. She lived under control. She had nothing to offer. These thoughts returned often, pulling her back into fear. Yet love does not always ask for permission at home. The stepmother finally said something that shook her. She warned the girl not to forget who she was. She said people like her should never look up. The girl looked at the floor and nodded. Outwardly, nothing had changed. Inside, however, she made a quiet promise to herself. She would not let anyone take away a small piece of hope growing in her heart. She did not know that the man she loved was far more than he appeared. She did not know the truth about his life, his power, or his wealth. And the stepmother, watching her with cold eyes, had no idea that the girl she believed she controlled was already connected to a world far beyond her reach. The distance between who the girl was and who she would become was closing, slowly and quietly, and no one in that house could stop it. Life continued with its quiet rhythm. But the girl began noticing small things she had missed before. The city was not just a place to work and survive. It was a place full of stories, lives intersecting in ways she could not imagine. She saw kindness in strangers, the patience of shopkeepers, the laughter of children, and even moments of sadness that made her realize everyone carried their own burdens. Work became a place of discovery. She paid attention to details, noticing the small habits of people she met. Customers often left small smiles behind, and coworkers sometimes shared a word or two. These simple connections, once insignificant, started to matter. She realized that people could be trusted sometimes. Even in a world that often seemed harsh, the man she had met began appearing more often. He never rushed, never forced conversation, but he had a way of making her feel seen. When he talked to her, he remembered small details: how she liked her tea, which bus stop she used, or what she did on a rare day off. His presence became a quiet anchor in her life, a small light in the darkness of her daily struggles. She began noticing herself in new ways. Her hands, once only tools for chores, had strength and skill. Her mind, often dulled by endless tasks, could solve problems and think clearly. She felt proud, quietly, of what she could do despite the constant pressures of home and work. Every time the man complimented her on something, it reinforced this quiet confidence. At home, the stepmother's eyes grew sharper. She noticed the girl's quiet resilience, the way she endured without breaking. It frustrated her. She tried new ways to control the girl: longer chores, more criticism, public humiliation, but nothing seemed to break her spirit entirely. The girl became adept at surviving, speaking only when necessary and keeping her thoughts private. The stepmother had no idea that each word of control she uttered was only strengthening the girl's resolve. One evening, the girl was tasked with cleaning the house top to bottom. The stepmother watched every move, pointing out mistakes, demanding perfection. It was exhausting, but the girl moved steadily, silently promising herself that she would endure. That night, when the work was done, she stood in the empty living room, breathing quietly, feeling a rare sense of accomplishment. She had survived another trial, and that survival itself was victory. The man's presence in her life became a source of quiet hope. One afternoon, he asked if she would like to take a walk during her lunch break. She hesitated, remembering the stepmother's warnings and the long list of responsibilities waiting at home. Yet something inside her longed for a moment of freedom, even if brief. She agreed. They walked through the busy streets, talking about small things, the smell of bread from a bakery, the laughter of children playing, the change of seasons. It was simple, ordinary, but it felt extraordinary to her. For the first time, she felt she could exist outside the confines of her home, even if only for a short while. She laughed softly, a sound that surprised even her. The man did not ask for more than she could give. He respected her boundaries, understanding the life she lived. This respect became a quiet bond between them. She realized that love could exist in small gestures, in understanding, in shared silences, as much as in words, at home. The stepmother sensed a change. The girl's quiet confidence, her occasional small smiles, the way she moved with purpose, it unsettled her. She tried to probe, to discover what was happening outside the house. The girl remained cautious, offering nothing. The stepmother's control was slipping, and she did not know why. Days passed, and the girl's life continued in its quiet rhythm. But inside, a fire was growing. She began thinking about the future, about what she wanted for herself. Not money, not possessions, but freedom and dignity. These thoughts were dangerous in a house where obedience was demanded, but she could not stop them. The man, unknowingly, had sparked this awareness simply by treating her as human. One evening, she cleaned the kitchen. She thought about the path her life had taken. The stepmother's cruelty had taught her resilience, the city had taught her observation, and the man had shown her respect. Each had contributed in a way that shaped her quietly. She felt a mixture of gratitude and sorrow, understanding that suffering and kindness could coexist, shaping who she was becoming. The stepmother, meanwhile, continued her attempts to dominate. She criticized her appearance, mocked her efforts, and even threatened to reduce her small earnings. Yet the girl no longer felt the fear she once did. She listened, nodded, and carried on. Inside, she held on to the quiet hope that the world beyond these walls was bigger than her stepmother's reach. One afternoon, the man invited her to a small cafe, a place away from the city noise. She agreed, careful and nervous. As they sat, sipping tea, he spoke about ordinary things, but his words carried weight. He noticed her, he acknowledged her, and he made her feel present in a way the world rarely did. She realized that she was not invisible. She mattered. Returning home that evening, the girl faced the stepmother's sharp gaze. Yet something had changed. The stepmother could scold, threaten, and manipulate, but the girl's heart had grown beyond fear. She had a source of strength the stepmother could not touch, a hope, a quiet love, a sense of self that was no longer fragile. That night, lying on her bed, she thought about the man. She wondered who he truly was, why he treated her with such respect, and what the future might hold. She knew that love in her life had arrived quietly, without fanfare, but with profound effect. It made her brave, thoughtful, and aware of the possibilities that life could offer. The stepmother remained blind to the changes. She believed her control absolute, her power unbroken. She did not realize that the girl's heart, now quietly strengthened by kindness and respect, had already begun to step beyond her reach. Each day, the girl learned more about herself, about resilience, and about the small miracles hidden in ordinary life. And as she drifted into sleep, she felt a new sense of calm. The future was uncertain, but she no longer feared it completely. She had survived the worst, found unexpected kindness, and discovered a quiet love. These were treasures the stepmother could never take away. No matter how cruel or controlling she remained, life seemed to move in small, quiet steps, yet the girl felt a growing strength she had never known before. Her days were still long, filled with chores and work, but something inside her had changed. She no longer felt entirely trapped. Even small moments, like a kind word or a smile, seemed magnified, giving her courage. One morning she woke earlier than usual, the first light of day barely touching the city streets. She prepared herself for another long day of work, knowing the stepmother would find fault with anything less than perfection. Her hands, hardened from years of labor, moved steadily, almost automatically. Each task completed felt like a small victory. She thought about the man she had met. Even the briefest encounters with him gave her hope, a quiet strength that the stepmother could not understand. At work, she encountered him again. This time, he had a purpose beyond the usual greetings. He asked her opinion on a small decision, something seemingly minor but significant because no one else had ever asked her what she thought. She shared her thoughts carefully, and he listened attentively, nodding as if her words mattered. It was the first time she felt her ideas could hold weight, that she was not invisible in the world. When she returned home, the stepmother immediately began her usual scrutiny. She pointed out how dishes were washed, how the floor was cleaned, and how the laundry folded. The girl listened quietly, nodding, her expression calm. Inside, she felt a growing defiance, not of words, but of spirit. She had learned that endurance was a form of power. By staying composed, she remained untouchable. That evening, the girl dared to talk quietly about her day with the man. They met in a small park near the city. He listened patiently, asking questions that encouraged her to speak more. For hours, she felt free, sharing thoughts she had never voiced. He laughed softly at her stories, genuinely, and she laughed too. It was a sound she had almost forgotten she could make. The stepmother, unaware of these growing bonds and interchanges, continued her controlling ways. She began giving the girl more work, assuming exhaustion would crush any spark of independence. But each task completed without complaint seemed to frustrate her. The girl's quiet confidence was becoming noticeable, though she never showed it openly. One afternoon, the man invited her to a small exhibition in the city. It was not a place of grandeur, but of creativity: paintings, sketches, and handmade crafts. She hesitated, thinking of her duties at home and the stepmother's warnings. But something in her yearned for this moment of escape. She agreed cautiously. Walking through the exhibition, she felt a new sense of wonder. Colors, shapes, and stories unfolded before her eyes. The man guided her gently, explaining small details, asking for her thoughts. He treated her as an equal, not someone beneath him. Every word and gesture built a quiet trust, a connection that felt both comforting and exhilarating. Returning home, the stepmother noticed the slight change in her demeanor. Her gaze, once lowered and fearful, held a quiet steadiness. Her movements were purposeful. The stepmother became more vigilant, sensing a shift she could not understand. She tried new tactics: public embarrassment, verbal scolding, and demands for faster work, but the girl's calm endurance remained. One night, as she completed her chores, the girl reflected on her journey so far. From the grief of losing her mother to the cruelty of her stepmother, from the monotony of work to the rare kindness of a stranger. Her life had been a mix of hardship and hope. She realized that resilience was not just surviving, but finding light in small moments, and strength in connections with those who truly saw her. The man, meanwhile, had started leaving small gestures of care. A cup of tea, a word of encouragement, a thoughtful question. Each act reinforced her sense of worth. She began to understand that respect and love did not have to be loud or extravagant. They could be quiet, steady, and life-changing at home. Tensions grew. The stepmother's anger seemed sharper than before, her control slipping despite her best efforts. The girl's quiet independence was evident in the way she handled tasks, how she carried herself, and even in the small, almost imperceptible smiles she allowed herself. The stepmother could not break this newfound inner strength. she did not know why. One afternoon, the girl faced a particularly harsh scolding. The stepmother criticized her for arriving late from work, ignoring the exhaustion she carried from long hours. The girl listened, head bowed, silent on the outside, but inside, she felt a quiet determination. She would not let anyone dictate her value or her future. That evening, she met the man again. She spoke of the day, her feelings, her small victories, and the silent battles she endured. He listened with patience, never judgmental, always encouraging. For the first time, she felt fully understood, fully seen. The experience strengthened her resolve to continue to survive and to embrace the rare moments of kindness and connection that life offered. The stepmother, blind to these changes, continued her attempts to control and belittle. But the girl's heart and mind had begun to expand beyond the walls of the house. She had discovered a small sanctuary of hope and love, and nothing the stepmother could do would erase it. Night after night, the girl reflected on her life. She knew the road ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges and obstacles. Yet she had tasted freedom in small moments, experienced respect in the simplest of gestures, and discovered the quiet power of resilience and love. She realized that her life was no longer defined solely by hardship. It was also shaped by hope, connection, and the strength she had quietly nurtured within herself. And she understood that one day, the world beyond her home could be hers, not through rebellion or anger, but through the courage she had quietly cultivated and the love she had discovered in the most unexpected places. The stepmother, unaware of the depth of the girl's transformation, remained focused on control, blind to the fact that her power was slipping. The girl's life was moving forward, quietly but surely, toward a future where kindness, love, and strength would prevail, no matter how cruel the present might seem. The days moved forward, but the girl felt a growing strength she had never known before. Each morning, she woke with the weight of responsibility pressing on her shoulders, yet she no longer felt entirely crushed. She had begun to notice the small moments of life, the tiny bursts of joy and beauty that existed even in hardship. A gentle breeze, the chatter of children in the streets, the distant sound of music, these became her secret treasures. Small glimpses of a world beyond her struggles. Her work continued to be demanding, but she performed each task with a quiet determination. She no longer sought approval from her stepmother, who had tried for so long to control every aspect of her life. Each chore completed, each problem solved at work, small kindness she offered to strangers or coworkers became a step toward her own sense of freedom. She had learned that strength was not loud or showy. It was quiet, resilient, persistent. The man who had entered her life continued to be a source of encouragement and connection. Their meetings, often brief and casual, were the highlight of her days. He asked about her thoughts, shared observations, and treated her as an equal. For the first time, she felt that her opinions, her presence, and even her dreams mattered. His kindness was steady and genuine, like anything she had experienced before. Over time, she realized that what she felt for him was more than gratitude. It was affection, a deep-seated care that made her heart lighter even as her body remained weary. She tried to suppress these feelings, telling herself that her life was complicated, that love was dangerous, that it was impossible for someone like her to belong to someone like him. Yet the feeling persisted, quietly growing, unstoppable. At home, the stepmother's frustration grew. She noticed the girl's quiet confidence, the way she held herself, and the subtle smiles that sometimes appeared on her face. The stepmother intensified her efforts to control and belittle, assigning extra chores, criticizing her appearance, and attempting to sow doubt and fear. Yet nothing could diminish the girl's inner strength. Each act of cruelty only reinforced her resolve to endure, survive, and protect the small spark of hope within her. One afternoon, the girl faced an unusual challenge at work. A major problem arose, and she was thrust into a position of responsibility. She handled it calmly, logically, and efficiently. The man, present at the scene, observed quietly. When the situation was resolved, he approached her, his eyes filled with respect. He praised her composure, her intelligence, and her capability. These words struck a chord deep within her. She began to understand that she was capable of far more than she had ever imagined. Her father remained largely absent, absorbed in his work and unaware of the subtle changes occurring in his daughter. He occasionally offered brief words of encouragement, but his attention was fleeting. The girl accepted these gestures with quiet gratitude, knowing that real support had to come from within and from the few. The people who truly saw her, the girl's interactions with the man became increasingly meaningful. He did not demand anything from her, yet he shared glimpses of his world, his thoughts, his reflections, his quiet moments of honesty. Through these exchanges, she realized that trust and respect were as powerful as any wealth or social standing. She began to imagine a life where she could be seen, valued, and loved for who she truly was. Meanwhile, the stepmother's attempts at manipulation grew desperate. She tried to isolate the girl from her few moments of happiness, questioning her about every outing, every conversation, every minor change in behavior. She threatened, scolded, and belittled, but the girl remained composed. She had learned that the stepmother's power was only as strong as the fear it inspired, and she no longer feared. The girl's resilience was tested repeatedly. There were nights when exhaustion and despair threatened to overwhelm her. Yet in these moments, she thought of the small kindnesses she had received, the respect she had been shown, and the possibilities that might await her in the future. These thoughts sustained her, giving her the strength to face each new day. One evening, the man invited her to accompany him to a quiet riverside area of the city. The walk was simple, unassuming, but it held a sense of freedom that the girl had rarely experienced. They spoke of small things, the rhythm of the river, the colors of the setting sun, the sounds of the city as it prepared for night. She felt at peace, as though for a brief moment the weight of her responsibilities had lifted. As they sat on a bench, he turned to her and spoke with sincerity. He praised her resilience, her intelligence, her quiet strength. He acknowledged the hardships she had endured and expressed his admiration for how she carried herself with dignity, despite them. The girl felt tears threaten to fall, not from sorrow, but from a profound sense of validation and recognition. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen. Returning home, the girl faced the stepmother's glare, yet she did not shrink. She moved through her chores with calm precision, her heart buoyed by the knowledge that someone, somewhere, recognized her worth. The stepmother's cruelty had lost its sharpness, dulled by the girl's inner fortitude. In the weeks that followed, the girl's life continued to evolve. The connection with the man grew quietly deeper, based on trust, mutual respect, and shared understanding. The stepmother's control weakened as she failed to grasp the changes occurring within the girl. Each day, the girl became more confident, more aware of her potential, and more determined to claim a life defined not by fear and oppression, but by resilience, kindness, and the possibility of love. The girl began to dream not of wealth or status, but of a life where she could make her own choices, be treated with respect, and experience genuine connection. These dreams were fragile, yet they were real, nurtured by every small moment of kindness, every word of encouragement, and every demonstration of respect from the man who had entered her life. The stepmother remained blind to the transformation. She believed her authority unshakable, her control absolute. She could not see that the girl had grown beyond the reach of her cruelty, that her spirit had been fortified by endurance, compassion, and love. The girl's journey had moved quietly, but decisively toward a future filled with possibilities she had never dared to imagine. At night, lying on her bed, the girl reflected on the path she had traveled. She thought of her mother's love, the stepmother's cruelty, the small kindnesses of strangers, and the steady respect of the man who had become her confidant. Each element had shaped her, teaching her resilience, empathy, and the power of quietly nurturing hope. She understood that life would always contain challenges, but she was no longer the frightened, powerless child she had once been. She had discovered the strength to endure, the courage to hope, and the capacity to love. And in this realization, she found a profound sense of peace, knowing that her life was no longer defined solely by suffering, but by the quiet, enduring power of her own heart and spirit. The girl's life had changed quietly, almost imperceptibly, yet the transformation was profound. Every day brought new challenges, but she faced them with a strength she had never known before. She had learned to endure the stepmother's cruelty, navigate the demands of work, and find small moments of joy in the midst of hardship. Each step forward felt like a victory, however small. The man continued to be a source of steady support and understanding. Their relationship grew, not through grand gestures or declarations, but through quiet, meaningful moments. He asked about her thoughts, listened carefully, and treated her as an equal. In his presence, she felt valued, respected, and understood emotions that had been rare in her life. These moments nurtured her heart, giving her courage and hope. One afternoon, he invited her to attend a small event in the city, a gathering of people from different walks of life, sharing stories and ideas. She hesitated, thinking of her responsibilities at home and the stepmother's likely disapproval, but she agreed. The experience opened her eyes to a world she had scarcely imagined. She listened to the speakers, absorbed the stories, and felt inspired by the possibilities that life could offer. It was a small taste of freedom, yet it felt vast and liberating. When she returned home, the stepmother's sharp gaze and critical remarks awaited her. She attempted to belittle the girl, pointing out minor flaws and demanding immediate attention to chores. Yet the girl no longer reacted with fear. She moved calmly, efficiently, and silently. Inside, she carried the knowledge that her worth was not determined by the stepmother's words. The small victories of the day, the moments of kindness, and the growing confidence she held within were impervious to cruelty. Her father remained distant, absorbed in his own world. Occasionally he offered fleeting words of encouragement, but he remained largely unaware of the transformation occurring within his daughter. She had learned to rely on her own strength, and the genuine support of the man who had come into her life. Their connection had become a source of emotional refuge, a quiet reminder that trust, respect, and understanding could exist even in a world filled with hardship. Days passed, each one presenting new challenges and opportunities. The girl continued her work, performed her household duties, and navigated the stepmother's attempts at control. Yet she did so with a growing sense of purpose and resilience. The quiet confidence she exuded began to influence those around her, including coworkers and neighbors who had once overlooked her. People began to notice her diligence, her intelligence, and her composed demeanor. The man's presence remained a constant source of encouragement. He never pressured her or demanded more than she could give. Instead, he offered small gestures of care, a kind word, a thoughtful question, or a shared moment of laughter. Interaction reinforced her sense of self-worth, teaching her that love and respect could coexist with resilience and independence. One evening, as the girl completed her chores, she reflected on the journey she had undertaken. From the grief of losing her mother to the cruelty of her stepmother, from the monotony of work to the rare kindness of a stranger, her life had been shaped by both hardship and hope. She realized that resilience was not merely surviving, it was finding light in small moments and strength, in the quiet support of those who truly saw her, the stepmother. Unaware of the depth of the girl's transformation, continued her attempts at control. She assigned extra work, criticized her appearance, and tried to instill fear. Yet the girl had learned that true power lay not in domination or fear, but in inner strength, self-respect, and the quiet support of genuine connections. No words of cruelty could diminish the confidence she had nurtured. The girl's feelings for the man deepened, though she kept them guarded. She understood the complexities of their lives and the obstacles that lay ahead, yet she could not deny the warmth and affection that had grown within her. Love, she realized, was not always about grand gestures. It could be quiet, steady, and profoundly transformative. One afternoon, the man asked her to accompany him to a quiet park where they could sit and talk. The air was fresh, the sunlight gentle, and the sounds of the city faded into the background. They spoke of ordinary things, yet every word carried meaning. He acknowledged her resilience, praised her intelligence, and expressed genuine admiration for how she faced life's challenges. The girl felt a sense of validation and understanding that she had longed for, but rarely experienced. Returning home, yet they no longer held power over her. She moved with calm assurance, completing her chores without fear or hesitation. The stepmother's attempts to intimidate were met with silent composure, reflecting the inner strength the girl had cultivated over time. As the weeks passed, the girl's life continued to evolve. The connection with the man became a foundation of hope and stability, a reminder that kindness, respect, and love were real and attainable. The stepmother's control weakened her, influence limited by the girl's growing independence and resilience. Each day, the girl became more aware of her potential, more confident in her abilities, and more determined to shape a life defined by dignity and choice. The girl began to envision a future beyond the confines of her home. She dreamed of opportunities, of freedom, of a life where she could be respected and valued for who she truly was. These dreams were fragile, yet they were real, nurtured by every act of kindness, every word of encouragement, and every demonstration of respect from the man who had become her confidant. The stepmother remained oblivious to the profound changes occurring within the girl. She continued her attempts at control, but they were increasingly ineffective. The girl had discovered a source of power the stepmother could not touch, a combination of resilience, self-respect, and the quiet, transformative love she had found. Night after night, the girl reflected on her journey. She thought of her mother's love, the stepmother's cruelty, the small kindnesses of strangers, and the steady support of the man who had entered her life. Each element had shaped her, teaching her resilience, empathy, and the power of nurturing hope. She understood that life would always present challenges, but she was no longer powerless. She had learned to endure, to hope, and to love. In the quiet of her room, she made a promise to herself to continue moving forward, to embrace the possibilities of life, and to hold on to the hope and love that had transformed her. The stepmother's control was no longer absolute. The girl's spirit had grown beyond it. She had discovered that even in a life filled with hardship, kindness and love could flourish, creating a future filled with strength, dignity, and the quiet joy of being truly seen. Life for the girl had grown steadily more complex, yet she faced each day with newfound confidence and resilience. The small victories she had achieved over the years had slowly built a sense of strength that could not easily be shaken. Her routine remained demanding, but she had learned to navigate it with a quiet determination. The stepmother continued her attempts to maintain control, yet the girl's inner fortitude made these efforts increasingly futile. Each morning, the girl woke early, her mind already preparing for the day ahead. She completed her chores efficiently, her movements precise and deliberate. She no longer reacted with fear to the stepmother's criticisms, instead approaching each demand with calm composure. The stepmother's sharp words seemed to bounce off her now, unable to penetrate the shield of confidence she had. Built through years of endurance and small successes, work continued to be a source of growth and challenge. The girl approached her tasks with a keen eye and steady hands, often anticipating problems before they arose. Her co-workers began to notice her skill and dedication, and some quietly expressed admiration for her composure under pressure. She had learned to find strength in competence, knowing that doing her best was a victory in itself. The man remained a constant presence in her life, offering quiet encouragement and understanding. Their meetings, though brief, were meaningful, filled with shared thoughts, laughter, and moments of reflection. He never demanded more than she could give, but his attention and respect affirmed her sense of self-worth. With him, she felt safe to express her ideas and feelings, and she treasured these moments deeply. One afternoon, he suggested they take a walk through a nearby neighborhood she had never explored. Hesitant at first, she agreed, curious about this new part of the city. As they walked, she noticed small details: the way the sunlight filtered through the trees, the laughter of children playing, the quiet rhythm of daily life. These ordinary moments felt extraordinary, reminding her that beauty existed even in the simplest things. She felt a sense of freedom, a rare feeling that the walls of her home had never allowed. Returning home, stepmother noticed the subtle change in the girl's demeanor. She had begun to carry herself with quiet dignity, moving through her chores with efficiency and calm. The stepmother's efforts to intimidate or belittle her became increasingly ineffective. The girl had discovered a source of power that could not be stolen, a combination of resilience, self-respect, and the quiet confidence that came from knowing her own worth. The girl's relationship with the man deepened. Though it remained gentle and respectful, they shared small insights about life, dreams, and aspirations. She learned to articulate her thoughts and feelings more freely, discovering that her voice mattered. Each conversation strengthened her sense of agency, reinforcing the belief that she could shape her own destiny. At home, tensions grew. The stepmother's attempts to regain control became more desperate, but they lacked the impact they once had. The girl's calm responses and deliberate actions reflected an inner strength that could not easily be shaken. Even in moments of verbal assault or manipulation, she maintained her composure. Quietly asserting her independence without confrontation, the girl began to explore her own ambitions more consciously. She thought about the future she wanted, a life where she could make choices freely and pursue her passions without fear of ridicule or control. These thoughts, once fleeting and dangerous, became a source of motivation. She began setting small goals, achieving them step by step, building momentum toward a more self-determined life. The man, sensing her growing confidence, encouraged her subtly. He praised her problem-solving skills, her creativity, and her ability to remain composed under pressure. His recognition was not patronizing but genuine, reinforcing her belief in herself. She realized that respect and encouragement could empower her more than fear and control ever could. One evening, they visited a local community event, a gathering filled with music, storytelling, and laughter. The girl had never experienced such an environment before. She absorbed the energy, feeling inspired by the creativity and joy around her. She laughed freely for the first time in years, feeling the lightness of a world unburdened by constant scrutiny and criticism. The experience ignited a deeper desire within her to pursue opportunities beyond the confines of her home. Returning home that night, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The stepmother attempted her usual tactics of intimidation and criticism, but the girl met each word with calm assurance. She no longer sought approval or validation from someone who had never given it genuinely. Her self-worth had become independent, anchored in her abilities, experiences, and the quiet support of those who truly saw her. In the following weeks, the girl began to take more initiative at work and in her personal life. She solved problems proactively, offered assistance to coworkers, and sought opportunities to learn new skills. Each small success reinforced her confidence and sense of agency. She realized that growth often came incrementally. Through consistent effort and resilience, the man continued to be a quiet anchor, sharing insights, asking thoughtful questions, and encouraging her growth. Their connection deepened into a bond rooted in trust, respect, and mutual admiration. She learned that relationships built on understanding and support could empower rather than diminish, creating a space where both individuals could thrive. At home, the stepmother's frustration grew. She noticed the girl's growing independence, the subtle confidence in her demeanor, and the way she navigated challenges with composure. Her attempts to assert dominance became increasingly ineffective, highlighting the girl's transformation. The girl had discovered that true power lay not in control over others, but in self-mastery and resilience. The girl's understanding of love, respect, and human connection deepened. She recognized that genuine care did not require sacrifice of dignity or submission to cruelty. Through her experiences with the man and the small acts of kindness in her daily life, she had learned that human relationships could be a source of strength, guidance, and inspiration. One afternoon, she decided to explore a local library, a place she had rarely visited. She immersed herself in books, absorbing stories, histories, and ideas that expanded her understanding of the world. The knowledge she gained fueled her imagination and ambition, reinforcing her belief that her life could extend far beyond the limitations imposed by her home environment. As the days passed, the girl continued to balance her responsibilities with her personal growth. She approached each task with diligence, each challenge with resilience, and each interaction with thoughtful attention. Her inner life flourished, supported by her growing confidence. The respect she received from others, and the quiet love she had discovered. The stepmother, unable to recognize or counter this inner transformation, remained focused on control and criticism. Yet the girl's spirit had grown beyond her reach. She had cultivated a strength that was impervious to external pressure, rooted in self-awareness, resilience, and the nurturing influence of positive relationships. As night fell, the girl reflected on her journey. She thought about the hardships she had endured, the moments of kindness she had received, and the lessons she had learned about resilience, dignity, and love. She understood that life would always present challenges, but she was now equipped to face them with confidence, hope, and grace. In the quiet of her room, she made a silent promise to herself to continue pursuing knowledge, to nurture her growth, to embrace opportunities for connection and love, and to live a life defined by her own choices. The stepmother's control was no longer absolute. The girl had discovered a power that could not be taken away: the strength of her spirit, the clarity of her purpose, and the transformative impact of genuine human connection. Through resilience, patience, and quiet courage, she had moved from a life dominated by fear and oppression to one illuminated by hope, possibility, and the promise of a brighter future. Each day, she continued to grow, fully aware that her journey was far from over, yet confident that she had the inner resources and support to shape the life she truly desired.